And our next company is Stabilitas, and they're making an AI engine designed for security teams. And please join me in welcoming to the stage the founder and CEO, Greg Adams. Welcome, Greg.
Howdy. Hi, thanks. I'm Greg Adams, co-founder and CEO at Stabilitas, a company that's digitizing physical security. So we're not a cybersecurity company. We are a company that's attacking a $65+ billion market in the United States alone, which really has not felt the impact of data yet and the transformative potential there. So the quick stats on us: started in 2015. We're about $500,000 in annual recurring revenue right now, and we're very much a SaaS company. And what we're trying to do is use our AI engine to read open source information, tell you information that's under your nose everywhere, to help security teams react to emergencies more quickly and take action that can get their businesses back to operation at full strength as fast as possible, or even potentially see events coming and be able to stay ahead of them. So if we look at the Paris attacks, for instance, I'd argue, hey, there's a chance here we could have seen something coming. And this is coming actually off of our machine learning engine. This is data that I went through myself. You see in the weeks prior to the Paris attacks, there have been some blips, a couple of bomb threats, some other things that security managers working at companies or in law enforcement, things like that, would have said, hey, we should pay attention to this. But then if you look at the day of the actual attacks, the bottom graph there, you see a bunch of anomalies. There had been the German soccer team was evacuated from their hotel, the national soccer team. There had been a subway platform that was shut down 30 minutes before the attacks kicked off. What I'm saying is, hey, we wouldn't have predicted that people were going to come from Brussels and launch an attack, but in a world where we're overwhelmed with information and we can't get to what's important, we need something to cut through. And Stabilitas is trying to do that, and we're trying to do that in the physical security space because it's a place that we care about. I was a Green Beret before I got out of the military and pursued this company. I worked in places like Iraq, Afghanistan, all over Asia, and it was a constant challenge to get ground truth and to understand, hey, where I should focus. In Afghanistan in particular, I was responsible for a population of more than 400,000 people spread out over 500 square miles. How could I get to what was important? It was a nearly impossible task. I went to grad school inspired by some PhDs that kind of bounced through my valley in Afghanistan, and I had a great opportunity at Harvard to study a little bit of data science and see if there could be a business here. And since then, the world hasn't started to feel more certain. It's become a less certain place, and I've seen more of an opportunity for us to do something powerful to change that. And we started in the corporate space where, surprisingly, there's a 50% increase in what are called duty of care solutions, so spend to take care of employees as they're traveling all over the world, and now even when they're working from home, and a 20% increase in what you'd call security operations center solutions. And this is one of them. This is where, this is MasterCard's, where we are serving companies like them. Every one of the screens you see up in the background here is a source of information that's unstructured, that human beings have to look at it to make sense of whether there's something there that's important that they should dive into. And that information that's coming at them, it's growing exponentially. They can throw more screens at the operations center and try to throw more bodies at it, but they're not going to be able to uncover what's important by doing that. They need something like Stabilitas, which uses a machine learning engine to analyze the news just like a human being would and condense it into what's important by event. So we're structuring open source journalism, social media information, bringing it together into these events, categorizing it just like a person would as a weather event, a terrorism event, and then giving a summary that the security team can then take action on to resolve the information and get back to the incident and get back to work. What this means is time saved. We've always been told is from the customers that we're dealing with right now is that 15 minutes is their gold standard for reacting to an emergency. If you look at the Manhattan truck attacks last year where we served an executive protection company, we helped resolve the incident, identify something was happening, contact the people that were on the ground, see if they were okay, and tell them to shelter in place within 3 minutes. This is a game changer for those that are working in security. We're like the Bloomberg for security operations centers going forward. Johann Windmiller at Physician Mutual, one of our customers, would tell me about the anxiety he'd have going to bed at night, that he'd get a push notification, it'd wake him up in a panic. Now, Stabilitas is his eyes and ears, and he sleeps better at night. We're serving customers like Ingersoll Rand, whom we now started helping them monitor their supply chain, and we moved out throughout their company, where they've got their security operations center actually located in Davidson, North Carolina. How else were they going to know, without Stabilitas, about a protest that was impacting their warehouses over in Vietnam? We made our first enterprise sale in May of 2017 to Procter & Gamble, and since then we've continued to land impressive and massive logos from Ingersoll Rand, Physicians Mutual, Bayer, Travel Leaders Group, Major League Baseball just last month, and a large online retailer in Seattle that's looking for another headquarters right now. We see a $4.4 billion segmented addressable market opportunity in the United States alone, but we're focused laser tight on the corporate security space right now in the large enterprise segment. This is really just the tip of the iceberg. Understanding these events, trying to suss fact from fiction and get to ground truth is critical for journalism. It's critical for pricing insurance, staying ahead of market-moving information in finance, getting your logistics pinned down, which we're seeing now with Ingersoll Rand. There are consumer applications for what we're doing, and we see it in travel already. And of course, we're still passionate about the government space, where we know there's a $71 billion intelligence budget for tools and people and manpower. We're beating our customers because we're getting information that's in a wide fire hose more quickly and categorizing it more quickly for them. But we're also beating the competition because we've got the enterprise integrations that they need to offer more value so that they can take action during an emergency, so they can understand what assets are impacted. We're getting beyond just an intelligence feed. It's been founder hustle that's been selling the product so far, minus a couple of experiments so that we could figure out where we need to go going forward. And what we found was inside sales works well for us. We put $39,000 into sales and marketing late last year. In 6 months, it turned into $355,000 in total contract value. There's a 9x return on our spend. And the great thing about it was that the contracts tended to be 3 years in duration and paid up front annually. So we plan to execute on an inside sales team strategy going forward, giving them the content to grow quickly. What we're looking to do over the next year is show that we can get to consecutive and high quarter-on-quarter growth and cross the $1 million revenue threshold. The inside sales team is falling in on a great pipeline that we've built out so far, more than $1.2 million in risk-adjusted or expected value, and we've got a couple of channels that are opening up that should be exciting to pursue. If we execute as planned, we'll be north of $30 million in annual recurring revenue by 2022. We've also had some other big wins out there. So we've had some non-dilutive capital that's come in from the National Science Foundation. We won more than $1 million there for our work in the data-driven process that we're taking. In addition to a great mission, this is something I'm passionate about. I was getting emails from General Miller's staff over in Afghanistan today. And the economic opportunity that we see here, clearly, I'm all about building elite teams. I had an elite team as a Green Beret in the military, and I'm looking to build the same thing here. While I don't have the time to dive into why all these are phenomenal people, I'm proud to work with each of them. I mean, especially Chris Hurst, he's my co-founder. We met at Harvard Business School. You might have seen him on TV at a Best Ranger competition in the early 2000s, and he was the first enterprise risk manager at Mercy Corps just down the road in Portland right before we started the company. Jason Flax, our CTO, he's at Microsoft, Dolby, several other really impressive companies, but at Marchex, he built a machine learning system that beat IBM Watson and Google for the semantic classification of speech and text. And then you've got guys like David Ambrose, who's just joining the team as our VP of sales, so he worked at Smarsh in the neighborhood and started his own company, SecureCast, where he led the revenue growth team there. So, I'm Greg Adams. We're Stabilitas. I'd love to talk with you if you're interested in learning more about what we're doing to see how we can work together to make the world safer, a safer place. Thanks much.
Great. Thank you, Greg. Eric, do you want to start off, please?
Hey, so Greg, fantastic job on the presentation, and also I also spent time on your website. It's a really impressive website. I love when I see early stage companies that look like they've been around much bigger than they actually are. So hats off to that. That was great.
Thanks much.
I want to dig in a little bit into, and it's great to see you already tracking the metrics. Just coming from somebody that I was a laggard on the whole metrics thing, so it's great to see kind of that right up front. You mentioned a $65 billion market, but then I'm also seeing you're going after the enterprise, and I got to imagine, can you talk a little bit more about what size company, what's the profile again of a company that has a security team?
Yeah.
And then secondly, do they have budget for this? Are you having to kind of create a narrative around why they need to go get budget for this, or are they spending on other tools or other things? Talk a little bit more about the ROI.
Yeah, just trying to see if I can flip around in the slides here. But the way that we've gotten to, perfect, that's what I was looking for. So the target market that we've gone for is definitely enterprise customers with $1 billion or more in revenues. That's both privately held companies and publicly held companies in the United States. So we're looking for companies that primarily speak English so that we could have a focus for our machine learning feed. And that's definitely our beachhead. But when I look at the broader 200,000 organizations that are out there, they may not have a title of security manager like these corporate security teams do in the enterprise space. They're very clear. We can hunt them down on LinkedIn, stuff like that. When you talk about the broader opportunity out there, you're talking about people that work in dispatch for law enforcement, for an ambulance company, things like that. They're part of the broad opportunity. You're looking at municipalities and who might be working, again, in a dispatch kind of role there, or in some other kind of HR role in some cases. My co-founder's wife is a principal for a school, and she gets inbound marketing all the time for messaging and notification platforms for reaching out to parents during an emergency. And so there's clear application there, but she's not a security manager. She would be the principal that we're looking out for. So I think what we're trying to do as far as our product goes is lower the barrier to entry for any of the customers so that they could log onto our website and get access to our dashboard and start to get up and functioning versus having an enterprise sales process and implementation, which we have to have right now, but that's great for getting the customer feedback and getting the product right. So we'll have to change the sales process as we go to those smaller organizations that have a non-security person leading them. But right now we're getting the product right, and we think there's a massive market opportunity there on its own.
Thank you.
First off, thank you for your service. Certainly appreciate that. But also, as Eric said, terrific presentation. What are some of the challenges that you think you're going to face as you try to scale, especially as you talked about scaling to 30 million by 2022? What do you think those big challenges are?
So Jason Flax is a CTO that I hired specifically because he's a product-minded person, but he's built engineering teams from scratch, and he's had revenue responsibilities with products that he brought on internally from scratch. He grew something at Marchex from 0 to north of 10 million in revenue. Building a scalable product is something that definitely I worry about, being able to hire the talent to go forward, and that's why being able to bring on guys like Jason was so important. The next big thing is how do we build a scalable sales team? So we ran some of the experiments on the sales side to see what we need to do. And as I told you, we saw the best return on investment by working on an inside sales approach. And so the sales leader that I've hired and is coming on now is somebody I think we can build a framework around. From the beginning, we have to be metric driven, make sure that we're hitting our milestones and we're all aligned as a company to make that happen.
Great.
Did that answer your question?
So if your core innovation is your AI engine, why did you choose to provide it yourself as a service to customers versus licensing it to existing security firms that are serving your market?
So we got off the phone with G4S this morning. We work with an executive protection company. Those are kind of some of the channel opportunities that I mentioned out there. We wanted to make sure that we are the people selling the product right now to make sure that we understand what the customer wants. We think we have some insight on this from having worked in the security space, but you need the customer feedback. And so we've always started with direct sales to get the tight customer feedback, make sure that we're speaking the right language with the customer. But if the channel is right, we'll definitely experiment with it. I'm not going to say that we're taking a channel strategy going forward. We're just going to experiment and see what works. For companies in travel, like Travel Leaders Group, They have a reseller agreement with us. We already have 6 proposals out with them since signing that reseller agreement about a month ago. There's a big opportunity there, and we're part of how they can attract customers, so they see massive ROI potential. G4S sees something similar, but in a different market altogether.
Super. Questions for Greg from the audience? Does anyone have a magic box or question?
Somebody up
In the
top.
very back? Yeah. Is there a question up there? And maybe while they're getting the question organized, what are some of the unique and proprietary data feeds that you're able to bring to your platform that maybe isn't being tapped into today?
Well, so there's our customer user base. They have the ability to share information with others in the security ecosystem, and that's kind of the dream, is to break down information silos that exist in the security community, whether it's from the overclassification of intelligence or whether it's ego. When there's breaking news and you need ground truth, that there's somebody there that's working in a different organization from you, you're going to find a way to make something happen. And we're trying to open up the potential for that right now. So those would be examples of something that's more proprietary. Other than that, like the secondary information, so the summarized information that we're generating on our platform is absolutely proprietary.
Super, thanks. Yeah, in the balcony, please. Up here.
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
All right, why don't you speak
shout.
loud and we'll repeat. Go ahead and shout your question. Can you hear me now? Yes.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm really impressed with what you're trying to do. As Mr. Branham, part of the startup today, and I spent probably 30 plus years in corporate world at Intel. And now I'm also a steering committee member and also a judge for Edison Award for people who don't know. Thomas Alva Edison, there's EdisonAwards.com. I would like to invite you to apply to the EdisonAwards.com. That will give you the level of publicity that you need.
Great. Got another channel partner.
Exactly.
Okay.
Thanks very much. I'll
That's
follow up
great.
with you
See you guys
immediately
soon.
afterwards. Yeah.
Good night.
This is not only for you, anybody here who has worthwhile innovation,
Okay.
take a look at EdisonAwards.com.
Super.
See if you want to nominate your product / services.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Other questions for Greg? Or pitches? Channel partners? Please.
Thank you for your presentation. My question really has to do with the threats that you're trying to identify, which are always changing and they're becoming technologically more sophisticated, et cetera, et cetera. How important is it that your company have the monitors and the engineers, et cetera, that continue to track these threats so that you can upgrade your platform and provide current useful information?
So we have our own data training team that's in-house. It's actually kind of a fractional team. It's spread out all over the place, but it's absolutely important for us to continuing to work on our own algorithms to be able to find ways to basically cluster information and try to get to the validity of sources more and more. But we built out our training data set comes from human analysts that have worked in the military or come out of security and intelligence programs. And so what we're trying to do is model as close as possible to what a human being today would pay attention to as a threat. So as people adjust, our training model and training data set should be adjusting.
Eric?
Hey, just one last question. Have you thought about opening up for consumers?
We have, and I think we're starting to we know that we didn't want to do it right away. Yeah. We thought that selling to the enterprise space was a better way to get the fundamentals down for the company, but we can absolutely, this is a very similar product, especially when it comes to the travel piece of our platform in the consumer space. And we need to be able to dedicate resources to it. Right now, I'm not willing to do that other than in an experimental fashion, but with Travel Leaders Group being a customer, they expose us to a lot of travel agents and a lot of individual travelers. We should be ingesting several million passenger name records next year and giving threat reports to those people before they travel internationally. And so we're going to start to understand what it would look like to scale the product in the consumer space by doing that.
Cool.
Great. Thank you. This is super, and I was talking with the security guard in our building the other day, and he says he's so busy that he barely has time to relax for more than 6 hours at a time. And this will definitely keep people busy because it sounds like it's a very useful and applicable platform. So thank you for taking the time, Greg, to share
Thanks,
it with
Eric.
us.